Are we in, Daniel?
Yes.
Why do I get angry at stress? I had to set up a Facebook account yesterday, and it was such a fucking hassle. And they had to link the Facebook with the Instagram, and then you set up the Facebook account, but you have to get an account, and then you have to get a page, and then it's all like, and today 0 followers, 0. So
the mayor behind you, David. I just realised. Yeah.
Jesus Christ, folks. Sorry, Ivor, we're going to give you an intro.
Do you want the headphones? Because
no, you don't have to wear them.
Yeah, I'm not as used to them now, and the reverb and all. So I'd probably
you can do the podcast bareback.
Oh yes, indeed.
Ivor, I'm so sorry for all this stress. You don't need to see this. And thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to give you. Well, normally I wouldn't give a formal introduction, but the kind of guests we have on. What do we have? Mostly comedians?
Yeah, mostly comedians and
actually,
transgender people.
We've had a few but it's funny because I know a lot of the people that we have on the podcast, and I tend not to give them introductions because just because I know them, I just assume. But anyway.
You should give everyone introduction, actually. Someone.
Ivor Cummins, sitting here next to Hannah. Chemical engineer turned food author, whose controversial views, not to him, on the coronavirus should no longer be a major concern, despite widespread condemnation from leading scientists. I just picked this out of I was doing my due diligence and so on.
And who wrote that?
Well, actually, there was another website, actually, funnily, Ivor. Oh, hello, Ivor. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. It won't take very long.
No, thank you, David. I'm delighted.
Hannah, this is your dream come true now.
Yes, because finally I'm not being outcast. And there's someone who is scientifically can prove that we were right.
Okay, well, wait a second now. But Hannah, what I really loved about Hannah during the whole kind of Salem witch trials and all that, I mean, the coronavirus thing, is that she made sure that the 2 boys didn't get vaccinated, and she was very much standing against the prevailing opinion, and I found that quite courageous. And also, I know that she loves her children more than life itself, so that she acted out of protection and so on. But also, it was a strange virus in that it didn't affect young people, seemingly. No. It was quite strange, wasn't it? It was kind of if you were going to have a virus, that's the kind of perfect one to have that didn't affect young people.
But did we introduce the podcast? No.
Huh? Oh yeah, Jack. Well, I just did. Okay, go on, then do your intro.
Oh, it's fine. Keep going.
Okay, we don't need to do it.
Okay.
So Ivor, what were we going to say? I can't remember now. I was slightly derailed.
About the virus and the young people are not.
Yeah.
Oh yes, talking because Hannah was asking me, Ivor, where did I get this introduction? So I was looking you up, and there's a lot of guys who are like they're out to get you, but out to prove you wrong. And then there was one particular. Well, I don't want to bring up fucking websites, but there was one guy who was literally itemizing every fucking tweet. And it's quite something. How do you cope with that?
Yeah, I was actually okay with it. A lot of people wrote to me and they asked me that, Ivor, are you okay?
Oh, right.
And I said, yeah, I'm fine. And it's funny, I'm working at the moment on cognitive behavioral therapy, and I'm going to be doing courses on mental strength and all that kind of stuff. And it's just interesting. I found out something I didn't fully realize. Your values that you hold a core can help you overcome any amount of stress. They're extremely powerful. And it turned out, really, I had such a strong principle of going against this madness because I have 5 children. And I could see where it was going. I mean, I knew in March 2020, very quickly I realised, okay, some of this is stupidity and some of it is malign. And then by April, it became clear people were sending me stuff in the World Economic Forum, and the World Bank had a COVID-19 program, which was scheduled to run till 2025. And I said, here we go. Right.
And at the time, some people felt it was an overreaction. I just kind of went along with it. I think in some ways I'm very contrarian and oppositional, but in other ways I'm quite compliant. Or maybe I just
You are
don't
very
feel I don't feel
compliant.
part of society. So whatever they're going on about, I'm just going, yeah, whatever.
But
But the thing is, the big thing was the government. Well, look, it's better to err on the side of caution. You know, that's a classic line. People are going, "Fucking well done, Paddy. Err on the side of caution." That's a great fucking line, isn't it? And it's you can kind of get away with a lot. Ivor, you know, you're way out. We're erring on the side of caution, and you want to kill old people or something.
Well, it's always in history. The bad guys have always been the guys who censor. So when you see censorship, you know there's something bad going on and not what's being said. But also, what was it? Your safety is always the alibi of tyrants.
Very good.
So it's always been that way. And I mean, you know, in the 1930s Germany, the National Socialists, and we know what they went on to do, they brought out health passes. And they used health and safety to push their agenda early on. So people forget history. So when I see all this stuff, it's very simple. If there's a true serious threat, okay, extraordinary measures require extraordinary evidence. So the measures they were taking, I just look and say, right, I have to see something really horrific. And what I see is something with an average age of death of 82. I see people below 50, with rare exceptions, if people have immune issues, are basically exempt from any effect.
Well, it's funny.
Just insane.
It's funny. Sorry, just as you said there, I don't know why you said National Socialists in Germany in 1930, and we all know what they went on to do. Like, who the fuck doesn't know what they went on to do? Would there be somebody watching this going, huh? 90? Germans are very nice. 19? I'll just look that up. Oh, Jesus Christ, they didn't. But the thing is, I was in Morocco, darling. At the end of a shoot, I had a small part. No such thing as a small part in a movie. I can't believe I'm fucking talking about myself. That's just it's cognitive behavior, narcissist. But the way it was presented, it was this kind of World War Z. It was when the virus broke. Like there was planes, like just stopped on the in the airport on the runway. You know, just full of coronavirus. Like, it really felt like it was the Ebola virus.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like early on. And there was sort of videos of people struggling to breathe in hospitals in Italy and all that kind of stuff. But do you remember that?
I do
I remember that. And,
but,
and I think it scared the shit out of people.
It did.
Early on.
Yeah, well, the beauty of viruses for political gains, I mean, they're just perfect because no one... or vast numbers of ordinary people, they don't know virology, epidemiology, immunology. They don't have a clue.
And isn't it so funny, though, Ivor, up until that point in history, who gave a fuck about virology? And then you suddenly, like in parties, you know, during the coronavirus, John is a virologist. And fucking, oh, John, you're a virologist, are you?
But
Woohoo! You know what I mean?
What about Luke O'Neill? He... You know,
who's Luke O'Neill?
Luke O'Neill, who's Luke O'Neill? Who is a virologist?
Was he the head? Who was
Trinity?
No, O'Hanlon.
No, but he would be a guest on RTE.
Oh yeah,
and Pat Kenny. He's on Pat Kenny's show as a regular. Yeah, now.
No, but he carved the whole career from that period, and now he's got even like an hour of his music show. He plays the jingles.
And what's his qualifications?
Oh, he's a head of Trinity.
Trinity. That's the problem.
I believe
virology department.
Immunology mainly. Now, the funny thing is, a friend of mine who's big into all the biochemistry, Gabor Doshi in Hungary, he's brilliant, savant. But he actually defended Luke early on. And I said, look at this turkey. He's insane. And he said, well, I have a few of his papers on innate immunity. Won't get into detail. And he said they were quite good. So Luke started off pretty good. He's not a medical doctor. He did, I think, the humanities or something. I'm not sure. But he's not a medical doctor. But he was just rolled out with all the other experts to basically scare everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, it was clear. And I think, and I always said, some of them believed their own BS. I looked at Luke O'Neill, and I managed people for 25 years. I'm reasonably good at reading people. I think he knew everything he was saying was pretty much nonsense. It was the way he said it. But he sold his company for 33 million. So he had skin in the game. you know. So a lot of them, other ones like that crazy guy.
Sorry, what company did he sell for 30?
I can't remember
Sorry,
the name.
so Skin and what? How would he having?
He's got an interest.
What would be the interest in perpetuating the COVID thing?
Well, there's a thing, essentially, that's the pandemic industry that sprang up, and everyone was wetting their beaks. So all the immunology...
I would love to have fucking wet my beak. Why didn't we wet our beaks, Hannah?
We did the game.
No, but I'm telling you,
because
because if you think about it, let's say if you now, say in hindsight, Back to the Future, if so 2019, how would I have made money? Well, I guess that fucking Randox bastards. Randox, we forged all... Hannah, didn't you can you say that on...
I'm not sure. Yeah, no.
Randox.
You know Randox, who did all the tests, COVID tests.
Oh, right.
That was
Which
a real
were-
racket.
Massive.
That was a massive. And
Massive.
then you see Randox. So this little piddly thing, and then everybody has to get tests. Putting the thing up their nose. Randox. And then now they're like sponsoring Formula One racing teams. Like they must have made billions. Anyway, that's the business I would have loved to have got into.
Well, the pandemic industry basically is myriad businesses. Masks and lateral flow tests, PCR tests. I mean, the health services themselves get massive influx of money. Remember in New York, they're giving 30 grand for a patient if they had a positive PCR. So a lot of people got positive PCRs.
Okay.
All of this was happening. Even RTE, I have an article, it's funny, and I came across it this morning, funny enough. RTE has massive COVID windfall. So RTE, that was struggling, got a massive 5 million in extra advertising because they were running all the scare ads round the clock. So everyone was wetting their beak.
Well, your man
Yes.
Luke O'Neill or those types of people, or Tony O'Houlihan. What's his name?
Houlihan.
Tony Houlihan.
Yeah.
Tony Houlihan. Anyway, but you see that phrase, erring on the side of caution, they knew they weren't really risking anything, because even if they were wrong, well, the intention was that we were protecting people's lives. So people like you might have been right, but you didn't fully know it, and you were kind of risky. But so, I mean, in a way, they were right that nobody's really that pissed off at them. I mean, it's in general.
But you know why?
Well, sorry. Go on. Do you think they
pissed off with all these guys who oversold the
Yeah.
whole nonsense? Yeah, well, everyone moves on because in human
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. So in human psychology, if you get involved with a mass formation, which is the technical term, where everyone gets involved in a big virtuous thing that joins the whole of society, and everyone who's virtue signaler and doesn't have any real virtue anymore, because people are lonely, they're separate now, they're in their phone. It's a fascinating thing.
Yes.
So when you bring a sudden enemy, and we all agree we can see the object of anxiety, we've got the enemy, and we can all work together to save Granny.
Yes.
Society, a lot of them go along with it. And later, when the whole thing blows over and people subconsciously kind of begin to see the data and realize the whole thing was nonsense, they a lot of people just understand that now.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. It's like after a civil war, like we don't talk about that.
Well, it's a kind of like the paedophile priests and all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. We kind of, we don't want to talk too painful. It's not on that level. But definitely the national conversation, let's say, is weather. It's the safe one to talk about. And definitely COVID was a national conversation. People don't talk about it anymore at all.
No, but like for 2 years, like every news was like that many deaths, that many, cases being. It was so efficient.
Yeah.
I've never seen propaganda working so well. I
Got-
think people like to be
Yes.
like the lockdown. They like to take break. They like to stay home. They were paid. Government gave the free money. But they just didn't understand that it was going to go for so long.
Yeah.
But the effect it had on society, like it really, pushed people further apart. Like people work much more at home. It kind of, I wonder, like in terms of, mental illness and all that kind of stuff, and how it has affected society. I mean, in a negative way.
Oh, there was many studies published on that. In the UK, there was one where there was a doubling of problems in households and violence. So doubling was not uncommon. Obesity went up, a whole load of conditions went up.
Because everybody's sitting
Alcohol.
at fucking home ordering food. I never ordered food before the fucking pandemic.
I know.
And now I'm a big fat piece of pig shit ordering on Deliveroo. Like, it's unbelievable.
And it's
just
very
like,
common now.
if I evolve,
is.
if I keep going the way I am, I'll get my arms will just, like, say 3 million years, I'll just be a blob. Well, no, I don't. I think I'll just defer my consciousness in my life. I'll just be on a big mainframe, and I'll just
you'll be just doing what you're told. Just eat.
Comply.
I think that is
comply.
the future of society. If you look at, like, we signal what we want. If you look in the Bible, they promise eternal life. So that's what we're heading to. We want to live as long as possible, but obviously diseases. So we'll just be able to somehow transpose our consciousness onto AI, and we'll just be living. Okay, David.
Well, there's a lot of people, futurist societies, that believe that kind of crap. I mean, there really are. And oddly enough, the World Economic Forum and a lot of the very high-level supernatural or national organizations that drove COVID, and we have all the receipts now, it was driven largely from the top in lockstep. And that's how all the countries and all the experts agreed, because everyone looked around and knew this one is one you have to agree with. But a lot of these high-level UN and World Economic Forum organizations, they have a lot of involvement with futurists. So there's a lot of futurism in there. They have a lot of fantasies about, implanting chips and humans moving to the next level of evolution. And it's not going to happen for a long, long time, but they want it.
If it's so easy to shut down the world, like, why aren't there more viruses thrown out there by nefarious groups? I mean, because it doesn't,
Well, it's very challenging. Gain of function is the technology where you take a virus and you just run it through mice lines and you keep enhancing it and tweaking it. The problem is you need a virus that's not too bad because it'll blow back on you. But it's just bad enough to carry out a scam. And it was perfect because it largely only hit the elderly, but you could make it sensational. So it was like Goldilocks virus. They got it just right. But remember swine flu. I mean, David, I always say to people are goldfish. 2008, 2009, we had swine flu. And it was published in the British Medical Journal, and many mainstream actually published articles a year later saying how the WHO faked a pandemic. Because back then there wasn't so much control in the media. So in Ireland it wasn't too bad, but they ran out of masks in America with swine flu 2008, 2009. I heard a ton of stuff about it in Ireland. And I looked at it and it only seemed to kill old people and not even many. So I ignored it. A lot of us did. But a lot of countries flipped over swine flu. 10 years later, they pulled essentially the same scam, but a lot better virus, in fairness. And everyone falls for it. But if you looked out your own window, I often said this to people. A relation of mine who's an accountant rang me in mid-April. I always tell this story. It's pretty quick. And he said, Ivor, is this a load of crap? And I said, yeah, but how do you know?
You mean the COVID?
The whole thing is absurd. And I said, yeah, but how do you know? And I said, have you been watching my interviews? Because in early April, I was interviewing doctors.
What years are we talking about?
2020.
Okay.
Oh, no, I was out on 3rd of April. I interviewed a Wall Street risk manager, a good friend of mine, who managed the SARS-1 on behalf of the Wall Street firm, the risk. And he had done an analysis of Italy in Excel. And I interviewed him on the 2nd or 3rd of April. And he showed clear as crystal that the virus impact had curled over and was coming down like a stone before they put the lockdown in. In other words, lockdown was nonsense, in simple math. So I was doing those interviews. This relation of mine rang me mid-April and I asked him, are you watching my videos? And he said, no. And he explained, you know how he worked it out? He liked shopping because no kids, and the wife has no kids. So they love shopping and they got plenty of money. And the stores were shut down, but Lidl and Aldi and some of the other stores with gadgets were still open. So he's going around the stores a lot because he had nothing to do because he's public service and they were all sent home. And he began to notice that no one was dying. In fact, no one was getting sick.
Oh, right.
So that is not a small thing, David.
Yeah.
If you're told we're in the middle of a crisis pandemic and RTE around the clock are telling us about death, and you look out your window and absolutely nothing is happening, You got to start thinking about it. And this guy thought about it. So he began to interview the people in the stores and say, hey, did you get sick? No. Do you know anyone that got sick? No. And he realized, RT are telling me we're in the middle of a flaming pandemic. It seems to be quite obvious it's only in the nursing homes and for people around 80. It has to be crap. And I said, yeah. So he worked it out from first principle. Which is pretty good because
what's first principle?
Oh, first principle is just when you don't use an expert or you don't look up the science, you just work it out from logic.
Okay.
So he worked it out from simple logic.
But who do you think is behind it, or do you think anybody's behind it? Do you think there is, Hannah?
I think there are some institutions who are interested in that.
So I'm trying to think. Are you saying that we're sitting down somewhere?
There is some deeper state.
Hello, John. Hey, look, I'm worth this amount of money. Do you know the effect of a fucking virus? Shut the economy down. I can talk to Blair. You know your man. Was it a planned thing? Do you think it was a plandemic? Yeah.
So Rockefeller Brothers Fund in 1956 set up their special projects group, and they had Kissinger involved later. And then they had Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum, which was set up in 1971. And they identified in the 50s that for a new world structure of governance, right, which they called, we're not allowed to say New World Order, they coined the phrase. They wanted a New World Order. To set up Council for Foreign Relations, Club of Rome, Trilateral Commission. This is not a small thing. I mean, the CIA, State Department were all involved and sponsoring these big sessions where they talked about managing the world in the next century.
It's funny, isn't it? Managing the world. Because the world is messy. So these guys are so powerful. They've got so much money that they can even talk like this, managing some big multinational corporations. And that's the way it has gone.
Well, you know the quote, and I can't say it exactly. I say it in many of my talks. Rockefeller said when they formed the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, he said, it is our kind of destiny to shape a new world order in all of its dimensions: financial, economic, spiritual, societal. So he basically said what they were going to do. And in fairness, over 50, 60, 70 years with a ton of money and creating a ton of organizations like the UN and, WEF and just countless NGOs and organizations, those guys meant business. And what's impressive about them was they knew it would not come about until long after their death.
Right.
So most of us work on things that are important in the next day or two, or week, or maybe next year. That's looking ahead a bit. These guys are thinking way beyond their death.
But obviously
because they have so much money.
But obviously they had good ideas.
Their legacy.
And they above, they above what our level of
but obviously they have good ideas because in a way, they have, because people go along. well, what I'm saying is people
ideas. So
people happily fucking go along with them. They want, they want. Listen,
they get compliance.
Look at McDonald's.
How do you get compliance?
Look at McDonald's.
You spread the fear.
Hannah, they look at McDonald's or what's the coffee place, the American coffee place, Starbucks. So everybody, so you know what you're going to get, and you can get it here, you get it there, get it whatever, and just and it just makes things less messy, less this and less, and just people kind of just go along with stuff, and then everything just becomes kind of just homogenous and easy to control. But I guess I guess
you actually said it to control.
No, but also
you would go to Starbucks. I would never go to Starbucks.
I don't go to. I'm just I'm having a conversation.
But
see the way you're trying to catch me out. It's so childish.
Do you know what I mean, Daniel? Certain amount of people to comply, and then creates division, like during the coronavirus. That there's animosity, and it's so strong that people start really fighting with each other. And if we people fighting, there's even easier to control them.
Yeah. So you create a mass formation. Professor Matthias Desmet I interviewed in 2022, I think. And I said it was the most important interview I ever did out of 400. And the reason was he fully explained a lot of what we're talking about, the mass formation concept. So bad people, totalitarian people who want to control the world because they have so much money, they can't have any more yachts. So what's left? Power over your fellow
like
man.
a god.
Well, power to maintain and control what you have, so you don't want to lose it. So if you have made,
power.
I'm talking about me and my money here. I've got billions. I need to fucking control it because the vagaries of economy and this and that and going up and world wars and so on. I need power. I need influence. I need to control it. So I need to. How do I do that? A fucking pandemic. Distract people. I don't know. I'm just trying to think like I'm a boss. Like they're just. It's so far and beyond anything that I can comprehend. But
you know what you could do, and I think it's available, but I can send you a link. I downloaded it years ago to make sure I had it. There's a movie called The Corporation, and they did a really clever thing. So a corporation, incorporation was brought in the 1900s, I can't remember, in America. And a bunch of very wealthy guys got together and they had a clever idea. Let's give our companies the rights of an individual.
yeah, very good.
Very clever.
Yeah.
So they'd have all the rights, So that's fine, corporation. So this team went out and said, okay, the corporation says...
The rights of an individual, but the problem is the individual is a fucking psychopath.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what they did at the start, and I love the way they did it, they took out a checklist for psychopathy, where you assess an individual, like, lacks feelings, has no respect for resources, other people's needs,
empathy.
No empathy. And they went down, they said, so let's assess the corporation with the individual.
Oh, yeah, very good.
And they ticked every box.
Yeah.
So there's a load of good people in bad corporations, and there's bad people in good corporations. But in general, it's what you said.
Well, and also,
Psychopath.
what does let's make up a corporation, call it Celtic Life. Okay, I'm sure. Oh, maybe there is. We at Celtic Life. We at Celtic, as if Celtic Life is, or well, look, and then but you didn't you? Well, at Celtic Life we. So it's another. Wait a second. You own fucking Celtic Life. You fuck.
You're making a lot of money out of it.
You are that corporation, but they try and distance themselves from decisions that they make by putting a buffer between you and them and calling it a corporation. It's almost like the right hand is killing somebody, and well, I have nothing to do with. We at Celtic Life. I mean that is not. But no, that's your hand, you cunt. I don't know. I'm so frustrated.
No,
but anyway,
it's good.
But anyway, look. Can I just say also, ultimately, people like yourself, everyone, people's intention. Well, I don't know.
Intention, like people, like us people, but corporation.
No.
It's not person. And their intention are definitely not right.
Yeah.
Well, I have a good one that might just help, but I use it a lot of times. So to make it clear to someone who's not scientific, particularly scientific. So in the summer of 2020, we were told not to wear masks. And I checked that out, and the science proves beyond any reasonable doubt, many studies, many trials over 40 years. Masks effectively do nothing for influenza or coronavirus transmission. So they were right. And then in the summer, the drum beats start. Now, no one knows where the drum beats came from, somewhere very high. But all across Europe, the drums began to beat, and there was talk of masks coming in. Now, think of my relation, and he worked this out too. The PCR was down on the floor, the hospitals were empty, the ICU was empty. There was nothing going on. So why were the drums beating for mandatory masks? That's insane. However, within a couple of weeks, all across Europe, they didn't just come in saying, hey guys, we want you to wear masks now when we're in the summer with a seasonal virus and nothing's happening for no reason. They came in and said, you will wear masks. And they brought in prison sentences and fines with the order across all European countries simultaneously, effectively. Think of how insane, clinically insane that is. So then you got to say, well, okay, who decided to do that? Now, I know why it was done, and I realized it very early on. And to be honest, it gave me my worst 3 days in the pandemic. I honestly was going to give up fighting it. Because I said to myself, and I said to all our Irish doctors in COVID recovery and business people, we were producing papers and sending them to politicians explaining this is madness. And I told them, it's a seasonal virus. We know this. It's gone until next October, November. They have no fear porn, no ICU, no death. They don't even really have PCR. So that's the terrain we can drive this home. Like Art of War, the terrain is everything. And I told the guys, we have the terrain for 4 or 5 months. Let's use it. And then they brought in mandatory masks and they took the terrain away. So they needed something that would keep people in pandemia nonsense land just till the winter when they'd get their fear porn and PCR porn.
But
back.
isn't it funny though, Ivor?
Interesting.
But isn't it funny, Ivor? Like people don't care about that. They like the fact that they're kind of being controlled and told to do stuff. People kind of like it. Feels like they're being cared for by the government. You have to do, it's because it's sort of baked into our DNA. You have to wear a woolly hat on your head, and you have to go out. Before you go out, you have to wear a mask.
You're helping.
And then you have these voices going, it's a fucking waste of time. Don't mind that Ivor Cummins now. But Mom, I think he might be making sense. Would you shut up? The government have told us, and they know. And then you look at the government, Leo Varadkar or whatever. You wouldn't be looking to them for moral guidance. But yeah,
but you did.
Also,
Pat Kenny was very vocal, also
against it.
Supporting the whole nonsense.
Oh yeah, but also I think also the thing is, as you were explaining to me all that, it's like when you give directions to somebody, where's the spar shop? You go down there, turn right. If there's more than fucking 2 directions, people are gone. They say, but you've got a chemical engineering background, so you've got a good brain. We hope. But you have a good brain, so you can follow the court. But most people, when you start, well, this happened, and then just people are like, will you stop it? Stop people, they can't. I mean, maybe I'm talking about myself a little bit, but no, but I guess also, I think if things, maybe it was a perfect disease because it wasn't really killing anybody
exactly
too much. Do we know anybody? And seriously, Hannah.
I know one person
who died of corona.
Of COVID.
Who was that? Do we know?
It's my friend. She wasn't vaccinated, but also in Poland she was sick, and she was just told go home and take paracetamol.
What do you mean she was sick?
No, she just got sick of COVID, obviously.
How old was she?
Oh, she was like 54 or something.
There are some.
But she was in a good nick, but she needed attention because COVID just causes some other diseases, so maybe she needed.
Oh, you mean maybe she was susceptible to something else, and
it just develops into another, disease. So it's not only COVID itself, but you might need other medication. But she was just sent home and say you stay in isolation and you take paracetamol, and then she died.
Well, that can explain a lot of the spike in deaths that occurred during the period. It was withdrawal of care.
Yes.
So all across Ireland, they basically, if you withdraw care from a whole population, freeze them out and tell them to go home, you're going to get a spike in mortality, especially if there's a bad flu going around, which there was, or a bad corona. You withdraw all care and you terrify people with propaganda all day long and you make them go home.
Yes.
And you're going to get yourself a fair bit of death, even outside of the 80-year-olds. And unfortunately, this is the way it is. So she could have got a secondary bacterial infection. Often people, influenza, they get a bacterial pneumonia, and they will die with influenza. But they don't die because they're all looked after. But if you're told to go home, some people sadly will die.
Yeah, and a lot of people died of coronavirus, but they died of something completely different. And then wasn't there also the case that if a patient died of a coronavirus, they get extra money from the government?
In America, it was 12,000, I think.
In Poland, definitely,
extra.
and here as well. So there was an interest to sign people that they died of coronavirus, even though, truly, they die of other causes.
And in America, famously, there were gunshot killings and motorbike crashes that were put down as COVID because the WHO, which is connected to UN and Rockefeller for decades, we know what the WHO are all about, and it ain't really our health. They told the world, and the world complied, that anyone who dies within 28 days of a positive PCR, which often doesn't mean much, is a COVID death in all your records. It's top of the death cert. And the whole world went along with it. So that meant that the data for COVID deaths means Nothing. There's COVID deaths, there's other deaths, there's loads of stuff, but we don't know because they said call everything COVID.
Yeah.
So they basically, very clever, they basically destroyed the data. And they kept doing that.
Well, look, okay, so, sorry, what I'm trying to say is there are some diseases that are fast acting and you get really sick really quickly. But in a way, you're obsessed in a good way. This is your area of expertise, nutrition, because the accumulative effect of shite diet, but because it's spread over, decades or sometimes less, depending on how bad your diet is, it's kind of like a sort of very diluted type of disease or coronavirus, like nutrition or food.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I got into that in 2012, and rough and tough, anyone who's in their, say, 40s and are eating the junk you're talking about, and it's very simple. What is the poison food? If you don't get into E numbers and all that stuff, it's the devil's triad, I call it. To keep it simple.
Okay.
It's sugars, refined grains and refined wheats, and vegetable oils or seed oils that they say are heart healthy. Those three are the devil's triad.
Okay, so where will you find the first one?
Everywhere.
Sugars, all three you will find packed into ultra-processed foods. Well, that's sugar.
Yeah.
It doesn't have refined grains, hopefully.
Yeah.
It doesn't have seed oils. So that's sugar,
But
which is not
I think
good.
he's got E numbers.
Okay,
as well.
go on.
Yeah.
Sugar.
The E numbers I kind of steer clear of because some of them are probably not good, but the big thing. So I'll tell you how you know it's a big thing without being a scientist. The British Medical Journal, I think around 6 years ago, it's worse now, said that over 60% of all calories eaten by people in the UK, over 60% are from ultra-processed foods. So the devil's triad, the worst food substances on the planet, over half of what people put in their mouths is that.
What's ultra processed food for tell me what
Layperson. There's a Nova categorization, but to keep it simple.
Well, like I'm going down Grafton Street. Where am I going to get ultra processed food? McDonald's, Burger King,
chips are ultra processed, refined.
Oh, so the French fries that I get in McDonald's.
Yeah.
So what are there potatoes? Do you know if there are potatoes in those?
They're not even potatoes.
Hannah, I'm talking to the expert now. I mean, are you
The expert?
No.
Well, it's a good one though, because in some countries, I think
there are potatoes.
McDonald's are not potatoes.
Yeah.
I think in Ireland there are, and I think in Ireland McDonald's burger patties are 100% Irish beef.
Okay.
So if you went into McDonald's and ordered a bunch of triple cheeseburgers, threw away the buns and maybe the relish, but wouldn't worry about that, and you ate all the burgers, that's not junk food.
So what's ultra
But what about being fried in the oil?
No, well, I worked at McDonald's a long time ago.
So did I.
It's not making oil?
We did not at the time pour oil because the meat has a lot of fat content, so they don't add any grains or binders in Ireland, in McDonald's, and they keep enough fat in it, which is juicy and delicious and full of nutrients, that they self-baste. So it's just a hot plate, and then they sizzle and the fat comes out of them, and I get hungry.
No. So ultra processed. So that's chips. What is like crisps? Like are ultra processed? Are they, Hannah?
Biscuits, crisps,
biscuits.
sandwich is a perfect example.
You mean that fucking that
bread?
That bread that you get that is just
Brennan's
it's made
bread.
with hate. That you know when you roll it up and you can make chess pieces out of it. It's
Which bread or
just like it's sliced pan bread.
Brennan's
It's junk.
bread.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
ultra white.
They're all-
white as
It's got
snow.
bleach in it.
yeah,
So-
or even the brown ones. To be honest,
Yeah,
Even the brown
bread.
one. Oh yeah, the brown bread. Yeah, but no, we're not talking about.
They're highly refined.
Yeah.
So here it is. Here it is in a nutshell. There's fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. If you process fats, like our meat, and chop it up and kick it around the room, it doesn't really change it. It's still meat. It's a human ancestral food. So if you add loads of crap and grains and make a sausage and put loads of wheat, yeah. But generally, if you smash up meat, fats or proteins, it doesn't really matter. The killer is when you highly refine into powder the carbohydrates, the wheats, the corns. When you make them into powdery and then you make them into crisps and you make them into bread,
Oh, I see.
that's what causes a big kind of burst of insulin and glucose in your body, and that's what drives diabetes and chronic disease.
And bloating and inflammation.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I certainly don't think about the food I put. Well, I do a bit, but not as much as I should. Maybe I don't have good food.
We should relish food. We should respect it, and in the modern world, it's too available.
Yeah.
So all the sugary fruits that are okay, and if you eat an apple, it's got all its fiber. So remember, they didn't grind it into paste. If you ate those same apples as puree, it would have a totally different reaction in your body. It'd be more negative. But by doing that, you appreciate real food. I mean, what's real food? The British said it, meat and 2 veg.
Yeah.
That's real food. So outside of French gourmet cooking and meat and 2 veg, then you're out into the processed foods.
We're totally sugar addicted, though.
Yeah, it's a problem.
I mean, if you go into any Spar shop or any whatever Centra, there's just rows and rows and rows of confectionery. That's just in our history, I guess, in our tradition.
Well, it's just the free market. It's capitalism. So the food companies make an absolute fortune, biggest industry in the world. Big Pharma is probably the biggest. And they make a fortune by designing the foods in the way I say you should not. But they're designed to be palatable and kind of addictive. So you use the vegetable oils and you use the refined grains, and it just means more. You always want more. It's just, they're designed to be hyper palatable. And then the stores, the people want them, and the stores stock them, and then eventually you end up that's all you see.
But also, I think it's a convenience food, so you don't need to cook that much. It's half prepared. You just put it in your pan, put it in your microwave. You've got it ready. So, people stop really buying basic ingredients and cooking themselves. It's very rare. And also, I heard somewhere, if you look at the package and look at the ingredients, if you can't read something and you don't understand, just don't buy it.
Well, Hannah's very good at all that stuff. So, what diseases are prevalent today that weren't prevalent like 100 years ago because of the diet? So maybe that's the best way, because usually people only actually change if their life is under threat or if they're like a dying man on a bed. What are the diseases that are as a result of our diet, or the correlation between?
Okay, so the modern chronic diseases, pretty much all of them, unfortunately.
Which is the biggest one?
Well, heart disease was the biggest, heart attacks, but it's kind of getting a run for its money from the cancers in the last 10 years. So heart disease, then cancer.
The cancers, you see, that's the thing. The cancer isn't just one. There's lots of different.
Loads of cancers, but they're all the same fundamental mechanisms. So your body.
How come we haven't? How come we haven't tackled
the war on cancer?
The what?
The war on cancer.
Well, how come
supposedly they're not?
What do you mean a war on cancer?
Well, they declared in America decades ago the war on cancer, like the war on drugs, the war on cancer, the war on terrorism. It's always just money. The war on cancer is spending all its money on drugs. No one wants to talk about the causes.
Oh, very good.
For obvious reasons, because the whole food industry and their business is a big part of the cause. So the corporate guys are.
But you see, as you just like the curtain fell there a little bit, talking to you there, whether it's a conspiracy or not, or a conspiracy, whether it was planned or not, it kind of fucking doesn't matter. But there it is in this kind of lovely, horrifying ballet of economy. Well, I would assume that there's huge research into the trying to stop cancer, isn't there?
Well, primarily trying to find drugs to treat cancer, because that's where all the money is, and all the funding will go to products that will then be economically valuable. But there's no money, there's no incentive to spend lots of money trying to do programs to stop people eating junk food, because the food industry is going to take our head off and the drug industry is going to take our head off from the other side.
Do you think we will find a cure for all the cancers in 100 years, or?
No, it's the nature of it. All it is, you see, cancer, in a sense, when we're embryos and we're growing, we're kind of like we have cancer because we're creating new limbs and and all that coding gets switched off when we grow, because if the coding kind of switches on again, that's cancer. Like you're growing stuff where you shouldn't, and it just runs amok. The environment drives that. Genetics is a part of it, But you asked about, well, what about before? So there's a study that's fascinating with Japanese women. This study looked, and some really smart people looked at the obvious. They said, hold on a minute, the breast cancer rates are around, I think it was 7 times higher in America, in Japanese Americans. And they said, let's go and look at this because we'll get out genetics. So they looked at Japanese women, all ages, the amount of breast cancer, and they looked at Japanese Americans who had gone to America. So the only thing different was they'd gone to America. Now that includes the food, the environment, the weather, but there was no genetics. After 2 generations in the country, took a bit of time, they ended up with, I think, 6 or 7 times the amount of breast cancer. Now imagine 7 times. Imagine you divided the amount of breast cancer by 7. You'd be beyond a hero. And the cancer industry would probably have you killed. But that's a conspiracy. So they proved without a doubt that the vast majority of breast cancer, and it's the same for all of them, it's our modern environment. Now, some people want to go after glyphosate and they want to go after
what's
weed
glyphosate?
It's stuff they spray on all the crops.
Okay, yeah.
It's pretty bad, but I like to keep it simple. We don't know for sure. The only thing we know for sure is that ultra-processed food drives insulin resistance, hyperinsulinemia, insulin glucose, and that is type 2 diabetes. And if you look up any chronic disease and insulin, you'll get 1,000 published papers. It's not a secret. It's intimately connected to the insulin resistance that comes from processed food. So it's kind of tied up with a bow tie on it. Most chronic disease. And if you only eat meat, fish and eggs and some vegetables, you just won't get those diseases. I mean,
Amazing.
1 in 1,000 will. But
Amazing.
It takes too long time.
Yeah.
And
What?
you have to make changes. It doesn't happen overnight.
People are too addicted to the
No,
processed
like,
foods.
that
People are
one
too
thing,
addicted to
but
sugar.
Also, it takes time, effort, and commitment.
What takes time,
to
effort, and
change
commitment?
your diet.
Yeah.
So let's say you develop chronic disease. It seems like happened overnight because you were fine for like 20 years, and then all of a sudden you've got cancer. It seems like happened from day 1 to day 2, but it's not the case. And then so it takes time to have the disease, and it takes time to cure the body.
So really, if we were to apply the COVID model the government applied to the society onto food, they'd get rid of all sugars and all, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if they were as...
if they cared.
Oh, if they cared, yeah.
But even during the COVID, there was no really like telling people take more vitamin D, look after yourself, exercise, raise your immune system. You're gonna feel better. You'll be more resilient to virus. There's nothing like that.
But people know what's bad for them, but they still fucking
they
do
don't
it.
know.
They do it. People smoke, people drink too much.
People do bad stuff and they think, well, I'll give it up tomorrow and I won't do too much of it and I'll get away with it. It's a lot of that. But if you take vitamin D, there were loads of published papers and they were kind of suppressed. And there was an Israeli one that looked, and you were 14 times more likely to have a severe outcome of COVID if you were low on vitamin D, the blood test, versus high. That doesn't mean vitamin D, if you take some pills, it's magic. But it was a huge result, 14 times. Can you imagine taking what my relation accurately noted was just a bad flu, really, and dividing that by 14? What would you be left with? Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. So what they told us to do, though, was to stay out of the sun, go home, eat junk food, and basically lower your D indirectly. The FDA came out. You love this. The FDA came out, and I kept it. They sent a threatening letter to a natural health website in the middle of 2020. Right, this is the Food and Drug Administration, who should know what I just said, because those papers were coming out quickly. And they sent them a kind of a cease and desist letter, not because they were selling vitamin D as a cure for COVID. They were very careful. The Natural Health website was just talking about vitamin D being important, and maybe it's better to have your vitamin D status high because, we're seeing some of this data. The FDA went and actually told them to shut their mouth, and they had to take it. That's the kind of madness that was going on. I mean, really sinister shit, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. But listen, it's all a bit of crack. We're in a sinister, totalitarian, crazy world. But you know what? If you dwell on it too much, you're going to be miserable.
It's so sad that so much money was spent on vaccine passports, there's extra beds, stuff which could have been utilized in such a better way.
Yeah.
So,
well, $4 trillion or $5 trillion. It was the biggest heist in human history by a mile. So the big corporates and the big box stores and very, very wealthy people, the number of billionaires doubled during COVID, So around 5 trillion, it was in Forbes, 4 or 5 trillion went to the top 0.001. And other articles were calling out the reality that 4 or 5 trillion came from middle class and poor people.
Yeah. I mean,
so that was a real thing. We can't deny. Like $4,000 billion. People forget it, what a trillion. $4,000 billion went from the poor and working class, small businesses, mom and pop stores. They were all shut down. And it basically was handed over to the richest people on the planet and organizations.
You mean just because people went at home and everything was online and just
all the money went to the big corporates and
Amazon.
to the entrepreneurs and billionaires who ran mass companies. There were people setting up bloody mass companies out of their ass and making an utter fortune over 6 months.
Why didn't we do that?
But obviously you couldn't.
Why didn't we set up a fucking mask company?
But you couldn't get the contract.
I'm
Obviously, there were people who...
genuine. Do you know what we should do? We should set up a mask, like a Savage Eye mask company, and just sell masks online. That'd be a good thing to do just for the crack.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, because look, you remember like a sort of nostalgic mask.
It could be part of merch.
Yeah, merch. Yeah.
Good.
But I know we're having a very scattered. I don't want to keep you too long. No, buddy. But anyway,
I just wanted to ask a question. What's your work with cognitive behavioral therapy? Like, is it with mental health or is it?
No, good question. So I've worked mainly out in the public eye and metabolic health and all that kind of stuff. And then COVID, obviously, I tried to help people understand what nonsense it was. But there's something I've been fascinated by a long time. 25, 30 years ago, I got in a very stressful situation with a kind of sociopathic senior boss who I left the company, and I was very unhappy for a while. My confidence was knocked. And that's when I first came across CBT and I realized how powerful it was. So, and then over the years, the decades, whenever things were stressful, 5 kids, one salary, 2 cars, big mortgage, there's a lot of stress in life. I always thought about how to manage my inner self that kept putting negative thoughts out. So, and then I discovered really late the Stoics. Only last year I realized that the Stoics, thousands of years ago, had cracked that psychology thousands of years ago. And CBT then institutionalized it. So I said, wow, because I was always thinking stoical things like, principles. You can't affect what's external to you. You can only affect what's in your own. And these things are important to stay sane and to not get stressed, especially if the whole world's attacking you in COVID. Like, they put a half-page hit piece on me in the New York Times. They did it.
I saw a lot of.
Guys are after me.
Yeah, I saw a lot of. So
to answer the question though, I just thought, wow, I need to now do a lot of work. I've done hundreds of hours in the last couple of months to pull together CBT courses, Stoicism, some of the work of Joe Dispenza. He goes pretty far, but he's got some good stuff. And Professor Peters, who wrote The Chimp Paradox. Got to read that.
Well, right. And as you're saying that, because I did the AA thing for a while, and some of the 12 steps are kind of, very deep. There's some great ways of thinking to help you, like we were talking on the phone, like I was saying, sorry for the hassle of having to do this fucking podcast. It's better to be doing something than not. And you said, yeah, it is better because you don't want the black dogs or not.
That was Churchill's phrase. The depression for him, he called the black dog.
The black dog.
Yeah,
well, and in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say the mind is a dangerous neighborhood. So the idea, if you're just sitting at home, if if you have a type of personality, we're sitting at home and you don't have a goal, don't have a plan, not doing anything, suddenly, these fucking negative spiral thoughts come knocking at the door, and you entertain these negative thoughts as opposed to entertaining thoughts about the well-being of people you love or things that you should be doing or whatever. So you're sitting there going, I'll fucking say that, motherfucker. And if you fucking say it, I'll fucking grandma, fuck him, fuck them, fuck it, if I'm poor, but me, I will show. And so, you know what I mean? But thankfully, with Alcoholics Anonymous, they say large parts of your brain aren't really good, aren't really, what's the word?
Not helping you.
They're not something fit for purpose. So you have to defer your certain parts of your thinking to someone who's older, wiser, and and that's what they call a sponsor. So you say, hey, listen, this is my situation, and then they, okay, don't do anything. And that's why actually what you're talking about, and simple good nutrition, good choices, it's very non-alcoholic. Because it's difficult. Anything that's difficult is I'm against. I have to fight so I've built a small gym. Sorry to wank on about this. I had to have a personal trainer, but I would rather not do this. So I've had to set it up where somebody comes to my door and makes me do it. But it is good, and you feel better. But then a lot of people, they just want comfort. They're sort of in quiet depression. They just want to shove food into their mouth and go to sleep and just die a bit, a decade or 2 decades sooner. So what?
It's self-medicating, It's a reaction to missing a vision and a goal that drives you.
Yes.
That is a reason to live long and healthy.
Yes.
And if the gaps are there and you don't create or take your values and think about them and create a mission that helps others ultimately, because it's hard to have a really good mission that's just for you.
Yeah. A mission, no, you're dead right.
It has to involve that next level. And
I always like that in the Blues Brothers film with Dan Aykroyd and Jim Belushi. They were on a mission from God, and it was to it was to do a big concert and save the orphanage or something like that. But they had this great mission.
Yeah,
and that's what you fucking need, man. I mean,
but you that huge mission.
Yeah, well, you do need a huge mission. No,
you
do need a huge mission or any kind of.
Yeah,
but
it could be huge for you.
It could be huge for you.
Yeah,
but your goal is to You wrote the book. I was going to say eat rich or die trying, motherfucker. No. It's eat rich and live long. Where can people get that book?
Oh, that's still on all the platforms. I think that was 17 we went out. It sold very well for myself and Dr. Gerber were first-time authors.
Dr. who?
Jeffrey, not Gerbil.
No, the Gerbil. And you have a blog. Do you still do that now?
I don't, thefatemperor.com, long story, but I don't use the website too much, so mainly YouTube and X.
And you've got like 250,000. Well, I mean, it's pretty fucking. It's a huge
amazing
achievement. How long have you been on YouTube?
Probably around 8 or 9 years.
Yeah,
but I got up to 100k subscribers, or 110, and then COVID. In fairness, when I became active in COVID, a lot of people were saying like, "Thank God, I can hear some sense."
Yes,
I got a lot of support and a lot of following.
But even what the shutting down, or these kind of these words that seem to legitimize shitty behavior, like deplatforming, or or what ghosting. No, people try to sanitize bad. Anyway,
the problem now is it's always money or power or control. I mean, has been for all of human history. The reason you can't have free speech is it undermines massive goals and visions of all the organizations who drove, we mentioned them earlier, drove the COVID thing, right? They're the exact same organizations who are driving censorship and deplatforming now. Because they still have the same goals of this management system where all of them at the top will properly manage the world. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. And if you allow people to talk and say, hold on, these guys are trying to manage us like ants, guess what? That's a problem. So that's why.
And also, people can fuck up and say stupid things, but as long as we're not trying to encourage, violence on other people, come on, man. Let's, but do you know what it is, Ivor? Normally, these discussions that they kind of drag on. I could literally, but I'm not going to. But it's just there's so much to talk about, and it's so fascinating and interesting. And I'm kind of outside of my understanding in a lot of this conversation, Hannah. But you love it. But is there anything? Oh yeah, last thing. Sorry, Ivor. Sorry.
Well, we could do it again.
No,
we do it occasionally.
We never want to meet you again. You awful, horrible man who has attacked. I saw him coughing into people's letterboxes during the height of COVID.
Did that.
I know I did that.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was funny. So at the start of COVID, as a joke. I was saying, if you want to, if there's some of your neighbours that you want to get rid of, you just open the letterbox, and then the people were, how dare you? I mean, it's a fucking. Anyway, but if you start having but there are a lot of buzz killers out there, a lot of fun police who are they so stupid that they say I'm actually encouraging the murder of all people? No, because is that what you're accusing me of? Fuck you. Clearly. It's my own letterbox, but I'm pretending. But people want to
be righteous.
I think and I've said this before. I think it's also some people, really bitter little collapsed bastard of a personality, and they see the groups over there having fun, and they're like, why don't they invite me into that group? Well, if they don't invite me, I'm going to try and ruin their fun and their enjoyment. And, there's a lot of that.
You covered this a lot in Savage Eye, etc. I mean, the Valley of the Squinting Windows, the Irish nature. There's a big chunk, a minority in Ireland, who have all the resentments and virtue signalling and nonsense. And in Donegal, they brought out a line to report people during COVID, a helpline or a snitch line.
Yeah.
And it came out in a small article a couple of weeks later. The police admitted that over 50% of the calls were snitching, but they weren't COVID related.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is what we're dealing with.
Well, that's why civil wars are so bloody. Because if the civil war broke out in Ireland, there'd be a couple of neighbours. I would be
just shooting.
But you can imagine. I mean, if you're a psychopath, civil war breaks out.
Oh,
and you'd be straight over, and you'd be, decades of resentment. Anyway, that's madness. Okay, look, Ivor. So just the last thing. I mean, in terms of, I'm in my 50s. Okay, I'm doing exercise. That's good, isn't it, Ivor? It's very important. I think in your
weight's
50s.
best. So running for miles is not as much payoff. So weights, all the big muscles, weights until you can't do the last repetition.
Are you going to the gym?
Very important. I'm doing it at home. Very busy. So I have 10 kilo barbells, and then I do press ups, squats. Just body weight.
Are you impressed with my setup here?
I would like to get something like that. For the moment, I'm doing simple stuff.
That's a foldable squat rack.
Squat, yeah.
So it folds out, and then I've got you see that that's the barbell. And I've got
wow, I see.
I've got my
that's the
weight,
real gear.
I've got weight plates and adjustable dumbbells.
Nice.
Yes, Hannah.
And most of the time you look at this, I know you.
You see. I love looking at it, but I have a trainer coming 3 times a week, and I can see my gains.
Everyone
and Hannah
gives a tour.
So eventually,
he sees people outside and say, "Can you come over and see my gym?"
And then but I'm telling you,
especially if it's a girl, younger.
Oh yes. Well,
26.
But max. You're right.
Bishop Ivor Cummins. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, it's motivational as well. If you let people know what you're going to do, you're upping the stake a bit for yourself.
That's it.
And you asked about CBT, so I'm doing courses now. I'm developing them. I bought a big flat screen to do them professionally to get CBT, and it's nature, the mind strength out there to help people. But also recently I've begun to tell people I'm doing this, and part of it is I'm telling them I'm going to deliver this, and it kind of helps you when you don't want to go out and work for 12 hours. Well, you kind of say, shit, I promised this.
Yeah, that's right. And also I would say to alcoholics out there, you go to your AA meetings. Oh, great, well done. But that's the real thing. That kind of is the great democratizer or the leveler. Doesn't matter how rich or how poor. When you're doing weights, it's just there's no excuse. I mean, no. What you're laughing. Anyway, I want to get my body into shape for my girlfriend. my invisible girlfriend. You know what I mean? And then I take.
Yeah, you're getting actually better.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? You know, because there's a
good.
lot of young women with daddy issues. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ivor.
Oh, you had this in your show the other
Oh, yeah,
day.
yeah, we don't talk about that.
It was a bit strong for this format.
You've got 5 kids.
Oh, yeah. The
Ages?
youngest,
How old are they?
25 down to 16 approx.
Oh, wow.
3 girls and
Yeah.
2 boys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're moving on.
Yeah.
Get rid of them soon.
Yeah. Is there? I do sometimes look at like pictures of Daniel, like he's 31, and I see little pictures of him when he was a baby. I do grieve the little baby that he used to be. Jesus. But that's great, Ivor. Oh yeah. So in terms of where no, we've covered a lot of stuff, but just the food thing. Yeah, I do. I eat sugar and chocolate. I mean, last night I woke up at like 5 a.m. and just ate chocolate.
What you do?
I just
you just lie in bed.
Yeah.
And eat. Have a sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
But anyway,
Okay.
it's brave to admit it because like most of people have done it in their lives, you know,
They hide it.
No, but it's a real problem.
it's
Now I can literally anyway. Okay, look.
But quick tip on that one, though. I often say this to people: if you keep in the fridge something you really like that's really healthy, like saucisson, the French cured sausage,
love it.
or hard cheeses you like. If you keep those kinds of things, and when you feel like, oh, I want to eat a chocolate bar, I'm gonna fucking you just have something there, and you can just pivot a little, and still indulge yourself, but in a good way.
Oh, that's so funny. Look, it literally, and by the way, it literally needs to be, okay, there's the chunk, and there's I can't do it. But no, I would need, in the same way I need a fucking, personal trainer. I need a, life trainer just to be with me all the time. Like a little beautiful lady
David.
from
Listen,
the
David,
Filipinos.
You need 10 people around you and you would feel really well.
I would.
see you with
Yeah.
a big entourage.
Can you imagine you waking up at 5 in the morning?
No,
David, you must go back to sleep. You can't eat chocolate. Yeah, but how about it?
Don't have to, or try not to have it in the house. That's another.
Yeah, I know.
Don't
It's so
buy
true.
chocolate.
It's so true.
Don't buy it.
I mean, it's so true.
Bad.
It's really. You have to talk to people like they're stupid. Come here, yeah. So you're eating chocolate, yeah. Try not to have it in the house.
What a novel idea.
And then,
Okay,
yeah,
can Ivor,
Ivor,
thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, you're doing so much better than us. And I was going to say, people, we don't get as much views as you, but we don't get as much views as yours. But anyway,
but I can. If you want, I can stick this on mine.
Yeah.
Now, because of demonetization and all, I might have to bleep out some of the words we use. Not the F words, words like C19. Unbelievably, it's that bad.
What's CC?
COVID-19.
Really?
And if you talk about climate change, so there's a whole series of words now that I automatically, they scan my videos, they find the words, they look for critical sentiment. AI can look for
but it's so disrespectful to the people who are. You're saying you are not smart enough to be able to deal with processing a human being talking about stuff that we deem as. So yeah, there is that sort of nefarious background, sort of algorithm driven
Big Brother stuff.
It's really pointless.
It's threatening to certain interests that we touched on. So naturally,
Arnold Schwarzenegger is behind
we
it all.
have to meet and talk about climate change.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's another thing.
That is nuts.
That's
that topic.
Nuts, yeah.
Listen.
You won't believe it.
Listen.
Yeah, it's even worse than our
I wonder
beloved disease.
Yeah, I mean it gives the COVID nonsense a run for its money.
Yeah,
honest to God, you'd love it.
It's a step more sophisticated.
Well, there you go, folks.
Subtle.
Some of us loved COVID-19. Some of us believed in it, like me. Can I just say I loved COVID-19?
I know.
And I don't care whether it was made in a lab, and whoever made that thing in that Chinese lab or whatever. I mean, not congratulations because it killed lots of people, but just in terms of your technical ability. Oh God.
Well, it made life interesting.
Oh yeah.
I love COVID-19.
What about a vaccine?
I loved being.
Do you want to take another one?
What's that?
Another shot of a vaccine.
And I loved the vaccines. I loved all
Another
that.
job.
And then you have these horrible people. Nasty people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
deniers.
Okay.
Deniers or spreaders. I remember being called a spreader.
Oh, super spreaders. Yeah, I remember that. Oh my God.
And I was a spreader, and little kids were called super spreaders.
Oh yeah. That
Killing
was it.
grannies.
It was so nuts. But
Okay.
anyway, we survived.
Thank you, Prince Daniel. Thank you, Ivor Cummins. Thank you, Hannah Andrews.
Thank you.
See you all soon. God bless us all. We will have a Christmas.